Hey everyone, Josh here. So today we're doing some rust repair on the Mark IV. Specifically, we're doing rocker replacement or sill replacement if you're from across the pond. So these are patch panels, rust patch panels. There's a few different ways you can do this. Sadly, it's not a quick, easy bolt and unbolt job. So you need grinder, welder, be able to paint. It gets a little intensive. So we can go over a few different options and then we're gonna go over the option that I'm doing here. It's the old Mark IV, it's not in the greatest shape anymore. It's now 20 years old. A few little blisters, same thing. I've got a new hood from the wreckers because we've got a nice big hole there. So new hood's easy to change. We've got a new trunk because there's no plate hole anymore, or plate light. And of course, the rockers, which is why you clicked on this video. They are non-existent. So there's multiple ways you can go about fixing the holes in the rockers at least. The very cheapest and most tack way to do it. Spray foam in the hole till it expands out, let it dry, cut it off with a knife, and then skiff some bond or fiber fill over it, paint it up. It'll look good for 6 months. But spray foam will hold moisture, it's gonna make it even more rusty. And it's gonna be a pain down the road to actually fix it. Next option will be slip-on rocker panel replacement. So instead of having like all these nice pre-bends, it's just strictly a piece bent like this, and then you stick it on there. So whether you use adhesive, pop rivets, weld it, the options are really endless, but you basically stick it on top of your rocker, but the issue is you need rocker to stick it to. Should I go to this side here? I don't really have much of rockers. So those are usually the full length. You can stick them on, or you can slice out the pieces you need and just put a little patch. So if you have rust just starting in the front corner or something, you can get a nice little patch, which I've done before. You just slice a little square, cut the rust out, and stick it in. But the issue is rust is usually considered the cancer of the car world. If it looks bubbly, it's usually 10 times worse underneath, and that's kind of the case of this. I don't think I've got much for solid rockers on this side at all, and the other side definitely doesn't look good. So that's why I've went with the entire preformed replacement panel. So this will be this side here. It's got the little tab for your inner fender, and then it goes up to your sill, or so it'll go right up into here. So we're gonna pop doors off, we're gonna pull fenders off, and then we're gonna see how this sits in here. So basically my thought is if I get these two doors off and the fender, it should make life a lot easier as far as stitching this in. The other thing you could do to save taking the doors off would be basically cut your patch panel like here or underneath here, wherever you want, and then set the whole panel up. But the issue is then you gotta run a weld the entire length. And I'm many things, but a welder and a body man isn't, I'm not those. So I think if I get these off, I'm just gonna have spot welds in behind here, just a seam here, a seam at the back, and then just a little guy up front here. So I'm hoping that a little bit of time it takes to pop doors off, which I wanna replace this one anyways, because this one's oozing. I'm hoping it makes life a little bit easier. All right, so we're gonna do this one at a time. Like cut this out, I'll weld this side in, and then I'll do the other side here yet. So starting off, we're gonna get these inner fenders off, get all this junk off. So this isn't too hard because most of the stuff's just falling apart. One thing I just thought I'd mention, these OEM mud flaps, they work really good for keeping salt and gravel spray off your rockers, but they're also really good at rusting this bottom dog leg, which isn't really good to begin with because they have, usually this fills right full of salt and sand and then it rots anyways, but this is all from paint chipping off of it and then getting surface rust. The other side isn't really a good example because it's rusty all the way. But I took those off of the Mark VI because I'm afraid it's gonna chip the paint and then just start rusting that bottom dog leg. So okay, so with these fender liners out, you can kind of see some scary things. So luckily my front, it's rusty, but it's still solid. As you can see, the front, it's just the outside piece right here. It doesn't actually include anything in here, so sometimes that'll all rust away and then you've got nowhere to weld the skin to the actual unibody. So the front looks good. The back, not so good. So this isn't real good, but the unibody itself inside is still solid. I was a little afraid that it was going to be all rusty the whole way across, and I was going to have to be patching the unibody before putting the skins on. But it just looks like I'm going to have to build a little piece back here when I put the skin on, so it could definitely be worse. But my plan is I'm going to get that welded in, and then I'm going to pop all these body plugs out and then just soak this all with under oiling, because it's starting to bubble there a little bit. So if we get probably that patch panel out and then get some really thin oil, it should all run down in there. Okay, so we're gonna get this fender out of here first. It's nice and easy. So we gotta get the bumper off because there's bolts hidden behind here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 across the top. There's gonna be one in here and behind all the salt and debris if you don't clean these out. And then if the fender's never been replaced, you're gonna have seam sealer over top of here, but you're gonna have one there and one there. You're gonna take a knife and kind of cut it and get that bolt freed up. I did this fender, I think 3 or 4, maybe 5 years ago. It was a free fender, so it's done pretty well. But to get this bumper off, you gotta pop your grill out, which kind of sits into there. You just kind of pop it out and then up. We've got one on both sides of the dog leg on the bumper, and then 1, 2, 3. A lot of the times they'll spin, like the bolt gets seized into the nutsert in there, and then it spins in the fiberglass, so you gotta kind of cut it and get creative. It's not real fun. And then in behind here we have one right there, and then if it wasn't broken you'd have one in there, and then this whole bumper should slide off forwards. There's gonna be little grooves in here that hold it on. Okay, so we got some plastics popped off, some electronics unplugged. So that's just inside of here. And then your back door, the connector's actually underneath the rubber. They're both undone. So now let's get these doors out of here. So these are an M8 triple square. On these Sunex triple squares, you can fit a wrench on them. So just fit that in like so, and then you can ratchet those two out of there. And then this top one here, it's a 13 mil. Go like that, and that way we'll keep that hinge there so we can have it somewhat lined up for reassembly. And then back is the same deal. Might have to leave it like this. It's kind of like a Jeep here now. So anyways, we got these doors off. These hinges are gonna stay. One thing I thought I would mention, if your rockers are all shook like this, it's a good chance your door hinges are as well. What I've done before is get used hinges from the rear door, and they actually fit the front, because 11 times out of 10 you're getting in the front seat, not the back seat. So they're usually good if you pull them from the wreckers, or if you're replacing a door like that. Does no movement. I don't know if the camera will pick that up, but that one's loose. This one's nice and tight, so you just quick and easy pop those off and then swap it over, and you got nice new hinges. Okay, so we're off to an interesting start. So this little L piece here is part of the body, and then the rocker skinned on top. So spot weld. And then the issue is with it so rusty and pitted, it's hard to see where the spot welds are from there. So I'm just gonna leave that for now. So I'm working the other way now. So this is all a hole, and this is your jack point. So I don't think the rocker was welded onto the jack point. I think it went up and over and then down and welded here. This piece here is part of the body, and then the rocker starts here. But the issue is when it's just so rusty, it's hard to see where the spot weld is. So I've got a big drill bit, and for example, once you peel off your coating, you can see right there, that's a spot weld, nice and obvious, but over here, it's harder to tell. And you can kind of see, same thing as up top here. You've got spots, it goes in, so there's a spot weld, out, there's nothing there, and then a spot weld, out, there'll be one in here. We'll just have to follow it along. So if it's still half decent, I don't think it's gonna be too bad, but when it gets really rusty and pitted, It's gonna make it interesting. Okay, so we're working along here and it's pretty crazy. So this is all painted up still nicely, but it seems as soon as this gets a little tiny little chip in it, moisture gets in and it just seems to spread. Like even like it's all rusting behind there. So that's, you think it looks good until you start taking it opening it up, and then it's not so good. So yeah, I'm almost done. She got pretty soft in here, so might need a little bit of work for the backing. And just like that, we're done. No, I wish. So I've got the bottom all drilled out that I think need to be drilled out. So now we're gonna work away at the top. So basically same kind of deal, the rivets or the spot welds. I set the skin on just so we can kind of see. I'm gonna mark it with a Sharpie, and then that way I'm not drilling out extra ones that I don't need to be drilling out. But what I'm doing, so the bottom I just kind of did whatever drill bits, but I did buy some hole saw or spot weld bits. The issue is this kind of walks all over the place and it's supposed to go in. So it seems to work pretty good as if you center it with your drill bit, just make a little divot like that, and then this thing seems to not want to walk around too bad. So I'm gonna try that. I did that in a few spots here. It seems to be working okay, so I'll mark it, probably cut pretty conservatively. And I kind of get the old rocker for the most part knocked out, and then we can get this kind of sitting where we need to be, and then do the final cuts before the welds. Okay, so that actually worked really good, especially on this door. I think I'm kind of getting the hang of it now. Just a little divot, and then as you're drilling, you can see that little springed pointer on it would flex this back sheet. So once I get this rocker off, I can just kind of touch all that up with a flap wheel and a grinder, and we should be good for the new ones. So I'm gonna go along, I'm gonna snip these nice and low, and hopefully this just falls off of here. I'm thinking I don't have all the spot welds out of this front corners. I don't know where they are, so I'm probably just gonna touch that with the grinder as well and try and clean that up a little bit. Probably just snip it like that, and then we'll give her a try. I thought we were pretty well set, but I guess not. So I saw all these spot welds. I didn't know what was going on there. So I think I don't know if you want to call it the inner rocker, is spot welded to the outer rocker, but not to the body. And then the outer rocker is spot welded to the body. So I need to go across and drill all those out. So it is what it is. Other than that, I think we're getting pretty close. Okay, so it's a new day. We got the dogs out here helping. We have this outer shell off. So when I said we got double the spot welds to drill out on the top here, that also rung true on the bottom. So we've got our inner support here that is spot welded to our outer shell, and then our outer shell is spot welded to the floor frame. I don't know, inner rocker, whatever you want to call these. So top and bottom are the same. This bottom's a little gross, so I'm gonna have to try and patch a little bit in here, I think. But then yeah, we can get this off of here. Gotta touch that up with the grinder, I think, and I can get this outer shell off. Wire wheel all of this, and then we're gonna get the new shell kind of sitting in here and figuring out exactly where we need to cut. And hopefully we get some fresh metal welded in here today yet. Okay, so we're gonna make up this patch here underneath first. So we've got a hole here from obviously one of these plugs falling out. We got a hole here from one of those plugs falling out. So my plan is snip it over, run it all the way down, right about there, come back over. I'm not a real big fan of this, but I think I can clean that up for the most part, and then paint it. So besides these holes, the other side of this looks nice and clean. So the only reason I'm cutting it so far back is just to have a nice lip here again, because it's kind of thin here. So my plan is we'll cut that out, and then I think this rocker would make a nice replacement. So I've got a nice straight 90 bend here, and then all I'm gonna do is, well, go to a nice spot, cut it right here, and then put this on the bench and flatten this spot out. And I should be able to kind of stick that up in there and then weld it. It's not gonna be real fun. Welding upside down always sucks. Okay, so if you ever wonder why these cars rust out, that's gonna be the reason. Right full of salt and sand and gravel from roads, and yeah, that's not gonna help. Obviously, all of this was from the same salt and sand, but once it gets big enough holes like that, it all just kind of falls out. The other side's pretty bad, so we'll jump to that here in a little bit, but definitely keep these things clean. All right, so the patch is, or that piece is out. So I'm not gonna worry about these holes because that's just gonna be plugs that I have to buy that I don't have. So then as far as my patch panel, watch out. Steel's all good pretty well from this seam back. So I'll basically go like this, draw it, and my plan is I want to oversize it just a little bit, especially with this roll here. I'm going to oversize it a bit. So what I want to do is I want to be able to set it up in here. It's going to sit in behind here, so then I can just kind of overlap weld it versus doing a butt weld, and then run it all the way across there then into the back. So I'm not a huge fan. It's a little thin here, but we'll clean up the wire wheel, make sure it doesn't disappear, and then paint that up and oil it nicely. So that's going to make us a nice nice strong support area for our new rocker. This is the only one I kind of really hacked up, but I think we're going to be looking good. And then the rest of it inside of here, all that looks nice. There's a bunch of gravel and stuff, so I'll blow that out with air before we're done. And then yeah, paint her up real good, and lots of under oil. Okay, so this fit's not too bad for the first test fit. Thinking I can push that down. I might have to kind of tap the frame or the floor up a little bit to meet nicely right in here. But yeah, all the way back. Fits there nicely. It's butted up there. So I think if I pull that down, I can just weld there nice. And do an overlap weld all the way up. And then up here, it's just a touch too long. So you can see my cut mark there. So I can trim this just a touch, but it's still a nice overlap. So really, I don't think I'm gonna do anything with this. I'll probably clean up a couple spots here yet, blow all this salt and sand and debris out, and slam her together. So now for the fun part or not so fun part of welding. So I'm using a gas MIG. You can also use like the cheap $100 flux core MIG. It works okay for doing body work. Usually those, especially the cheaper ones, you got a high and a low. So you're probably gonna want low for doing auto body work. But yeah, I started it. It's not looking too pretty, but we've got this corner here. I started halfway down here where the fit up was pretty bad. And then I've got the back corner kind of tacked there. So you want to make sure you've got lots of tacks to kind of hold the body steel where you need it to be, and then basically start over here for a little bit, over there for a little bit, and then just kind of keep working it around, because you'll see it'll start to kind of warp. It's not too bad. I warped it up front here a little bit, but yeah, it's not too much fun. So if we look really close here, you can see it's basically just a bunch of little tacks everywhere, and you'll see some spots where it's not 100%. So the plan is we're gonna get it all tacked all the way across. Then I'll get in there with the grinder, clean that all up, and then go over it again once more wherever any holes or wherever spots aren't quite good enough. But yeah, it's a little frustrating because you start kind of chasing holes. So it's gonna take a bit of time. The other issue is in that frame rail, it's waxed. So right now it's fine, but you put just a touch of heat to it and it all starts to drip down on you, and you get hot wax dripping on you. So it's not a whole lot of fun, but I'm gonna get this tacked on here and continue on. Okay, so I got it welded in there. So as you can expect, welding upside down is real fun. You covered in weld splatter. But anyways, so it doesn't look the prettiest, so this is the first time going over it. So one thing is this undercoating, the factory stuff is really flammable. So make sure you clean back nice and far, or else you have some pretty big flames when you're welding. Doesn't look the prettiest, but auto body, usually you're welding along nice and all of a sudden you burn through and then you're chasing holes, so it's not a whole lot of fun. But I'm gonna take a flap wheel on a grinder, which is nice to knock off the high spots but not taking away too much material. And we're gonna see if we have any pinholes. I can either weld it or I can get some seam sealer, like automotive seam sealer, and just run that along there. The nice side with it being on the bottom, you're not really gonna see it very often, so it doesn't need to be real pretty. And the other thing is the factory stuff's really rough to begin with. So if you later on that rubberized undercoating, you probably won't even notice it. Okay, so we got the highs knocked off there. And like I said, I'm just gonna use some seam sealer. And then just kind of smear it on, kind of make it look half decent. As I said before, rocker guard kind of hides all our sins. And then next, before we get the rocker set on here, I had quite a bit of rust built up in the pinch point here, like for your jack. Same thing back here where your jack would have went. Quite a bit of surface rust, so I got this porcupine on a wheel here. It worked really good. I'd maybe run a guard because those things kind of go flying off. I'm still okay, but yeah, looks pretty sketchy, but it works really, really good. So we got all that shined up, so I'm gonna get the new one sitting on there and we're gonna do our final cuts before we get this set on here. Okay, so finally the part we've all been waiting for is the actual rocker replacement. So I've got it sitting in there nicely. I've just set the fender back on over here to make sure it kind of lined up at the front, which it seemed fairly good. If this is too long, then the bottom of the dog leg is going to be facing ahead, and then your door's not going to have a nice gap. Yeah, it can get a little interesting, but we're gonna start cutting out the body. So I've seen videos where people will set this here and then cut along and then weld it in, and then just that extra little piece will fall inside. I'm a little afraid it's gonna be too big of a gap, so I just did a white marker line and I'm gonna cut to the inside of the white marker. I'm gonna start here, get that all dialed to 100%, and then start on the next part here. And I feel like the fit up, if you can spend an extra half hour and have the nice tight seams, I think you'll save yourself a lot of time when it comes to welding it back together. So definitely take your time doing this part. Okay, so fit up isn't too bad here now. A little bit of a gap. But as far as how the rocker fits, we've got some kind of high spots here. It's not too bad there. Bit of a high spot and then a low spot. So this back corner doesn't fit the greatest. So what I'm thinking is I'll probably set it in so that this is flush, this is flush. That's not too bad here now, but now this is sitting low, so I'll tack it and then we'll just put a skiff of Bondo over it. Same thing right here, like we're back a little ways, so same kind of thing. Weld that will knock off the high spots, and then same thing, skiff of Bondo, make the body line look half decent. So the main thing is right here where your door comes in, you want to make sure that it fits nice. Less Bondo, the better. So I'm gonna clamp it here, and then we're gonna cut the next spot. So I'm gonna skip filming that. I'm gonna get this all cut, and then we're gonna start welding. That is looking better than new. So the plan here, I'm not gonna fully weld it. I wanna just do some tacks. I don't know, 5, 6 or so. You wanna make sure the pinch point's nice and tight up here. Same thing right here. Same thing. So it's my cutouts. Didn't turn out terrible. There's some less than ideal areas. The front turned out really nice. So basically anything that lines up half decent, I'm gonna tack. Anything that's high, I'm gonna hammer down and then tack. Yeah, it lines up pretty nice. Same thing there, push it in and tack it. So I want to get the body lines all nice, and then we're going to do some plug welding. I'll probably start on the top, and then the underneath is pretty flexible, so we'll get the top kind of somewhat where we want it to be, and then we'll have some fun welding the bottom here. Here we go, so we got the body, the joins all welded. This back was a little messy, especially here at a bit of a gap. So now we're gonna run the flap wheel over it, knock off the highs, and we'll see what it looks like underneath. This side went really nice. This one I was kind of chasing holes for a while, and then yeah, the back I was really chasing holes. So we'll see what it looks like after the highs are knocked off. If we have any holes, we'll go back over it and weld it again. A little bit of porosity will be fine, but if we have holes right through, I want it 100% sealed up before we start slapping some Bondo on it. So okay, so we got our ground down. So this is probably the worst area because you just can't really get in there with a grinder very nicely, but everything else is down to flush. So flap wheel works really good. So besides buying a porcupine wheel, you're gonna want a flap wheel. And also the little die grinder, the little wheels work pretty good too to kind of get into those fine areas a little bit better. But up now we're going to get all the pinch welds welded, and then we're gonna be ready for some primer and some Bondo. Okay, so we're ready for some spot welds. So you're gonna be wondering, how do you get these nice, beautiful spot welds? So from the factory, they have like little pinchers I think they use. You put on here, and you can buy them online too. They basically pinch them, and it's like a welder. One side's positive, one side's negative, and it just kind of melts the two together. And that's how you get this little spot. If you look it up on YouTube, there's another way to do it with a MIG welder or a TIG welder. So here's the one that I did. Looks pretty decent, and it is attached, so we'll do it here quick. So you gotta figure out which ones you're pinching. So we've got the outside layer, the inner, and then the inside. So we've got 3 layers here that we're trying to tack weld through. We basically safety first, and then that's not gonna focus, but I got the tungsten in like 1/4 inch underneath the cup. Put it together like that, and then basically nice and easy like that. Shut this off again so I can hear. Right there. So I'm gonna go across and basically do the same thing. Spot weld the triple layer, like the inside, middle, and outside, and then also the double layer right here as well. So the main thing for doing this is to get it nice and tight together, so when you're actually melting it together, it actually sticks together and not just gets a little burnt mark like that. So we'll go across. I'm gonna do the top because it's nice and easy, and then we're gonna fight with the bottom. That is looking factory fresh there now. So same thing we're gonna do underneath here now. One thing I noticed, it kind of hangs out a little bit, so we're gonna have to really make sure get it pushed in and up. So same kind of thing. I'm gonna use a bunch of clamps, kind of get it where I need to be, and then I marked basically where it's gonna have 3 plates versus just a single plate, like where those little tabs are coming down. So then I can just kind of keep an eye. So we're gonna get that all set up and start tacking it up again. Okay, so we got it all on there. The bottom side, I wasn't real happy with that spot welding, so I'd blow a hole and then plug weld it. It seemed to work pretty good. So up next, we're gonna do a bit of body work. One thing I'm gonna mention is it looks like it's got a galvanized coating on it. So when I was welding, I was getting little floaties coming up in the air, and that's not really good for your lungs. So make sure you're not breathing that in. And I think if you weld galvanized, then I think there's a sickness you get with it or something, but you're supposed to drink milk, and I think that combats it. So I'm feeling fine, so I'm not gonna worry about it. But We're gonna kind of clean some of this up, and then we're gonna get the Bondo out and kind of smooth this out a little bit, and then it'll be time for primer and paint. Okay, so Bondo is done. So the less you have to put on, the better. And trying to avoid these curves in here. They're pain to sand. Up here kind of sucks too. So I use the palm sander, I use cookie discs, and I used my hand. Again, we're not getting too picky here. So Bondo is done. I used some seam sealer there. I did the front edge. I did the lip front to back, the little patch I put in there. And then back here as well. Seam sealed all that. So that stuff's ready to paint in half an hour. So now we're gonna mask it off and obviously get some color on here. It's kind of hard to paint match cars, especially 20 years old from the automotive store, especially if you're just using spray cans. I've got a can of Reflex Silver, but it's never quite right, and sometimes it looks worse when you try. So I'm just gonna go with black. So I'm just gonna do my tape line there, there, and there. So then as far as products, so I've got black self-etching primer. I've got a little bit of gray stuff left over from something as well, so I'll probably do some less obvious spots with that. I've got black rocker guard, which I used to be able to get European texturized rocker guard, which was a lot smoother, but it was still a nice high build. I find this stuff, especially if you put a couple layers, it gets really lumpy. I don't know, but I couldn't find the European stuff, so that's going to work. And then that stuff fades, like sun fades, so then just a quick top coat of black on top of it. So we're gonna get some primer on there, but first off, we're gonna mask it. So my thought is kind of put some tape on the back side of the seam here, and then put like newspaper up here, and same thing, newspaper up and newspaper up. Go a lot higher than you think you have to, because spray paint seems to spread everywhere, and if you're using an actual spray gun, it really goes everywhere. So we're gonna do that. I've got a bunch of packing paper here, so I'm just gonna kind of flatten this stuff out and then tape it on there. So there's all the black primer on. That's the first coat. Don't mind the tape job. My ambition's starting to run a little low on this project, but we're gonna let that flash off, and then we will put some rocker guard on it and see how that goes on. So I'll probably try and keep it thicker on the bottom side, and then the top, you can kind of mist it on and make it not look as aggressive. I think I still want to do it because I didn't get too picky on my auto body work. So I think a little bit of rocker guard will make that look nice. Okay, so this stuff laid out smoother than I remembered. I put one coat on, I let it flash off, and then put another coat on top. So you can still kind of see the seams, especially right in there where it's a pain. But that's inside of the door. That one, same kind of thing. You can just kind of see it. And then this back one, I think that was a little bit of weld maybe. But that could have used a bit better of a sanding, but it is what it is. It's not a, we're not going for a really fancy looking car, just trying to fix the rust. So if you were wanting a really nice finish, I would maybe spend a bit more time with the Bondo and sanding and stuff, make it a little bit nicer. It was just one quick coat and carry on. So like the texture, I think turned out really nice. Like it's not really aggressive. I'd say it's pretty similar to like the stock build. So I think it looks pretty nice. So we're gonna put a bit of black paint on it, and then we're gonna peel up the mask portions, and I guess that'll probably, be the end of this side. Put it back together. I'm hoping to try and find a rear door for it. The front one's still pretty good, but get some black paint on it and get it back together. So we got the masking tape out of here. We got the door seals sitting back in here nice. Nice black paint. It's looking something. The issue when you do this is it's pretty obvious it's had body work. This is kind of the easy way out, doing a black stripe down there. It is what it is. We're not going for a real fancy car. The other option would be to respray this whole quarter panel, but then you're getting into mismatch on the bumper and on the trunk, and then on the front fender, which that one didn't match anyways, but it's just a quick and easy way. At least it's all solid, it's all there. Looks better than what was there. So I'm gonna put doors on, get this thing out of here, because I got another car here to do something else on. So the very last thing that I got to do here yet is my plan is we've got all these little rubber, or these holes where the rubber things go. I'm going to soak it with not penetrating oil, but under oiling. So spray every which way and any of these open holes that you can get into, and just coat the inside. When you weld there, it kind of burns that galvanized coating off, so now that's bare steel on either side. So you want to make sure you get that coated in oil so it doesn't rust, and then you end up basically in 2 or 3 years all your welds and stuff are all rusting and bubbling from the inside out. So gonna soak it with penetrating, or with not penetrating, with under oiling, and hopefully this will last another 20 years. So I think I'm gonna end this video here. The other side, it is definitely worse. But I'm hoping I don't have to put any patches in the floor. It's just a matter of drilling those spot welds out. But I guess I'll see. I probably won't get back to that for a few weeks. So got these doors so I can go sit out in the snow, and then get on to the next thing. So thanks for watching, and I'm hoping this video, I know it's going to be a longer one, but hopefully it gives you the confidence to do rockers yourself, or even partially doing them if you have to. So thanks for watching.